Modern tanks are terrifying machines. They can spot a target from over 2 miles away. They can fire accurately while moving at high speed across rough terrain. They use thermal imaging, laser rangefinders, ballistic computers, all of it more powerful than anything soldiers had access to a generation ago. With all that firepower packed into one machine, you'd think every part of it would be automated by now. You'd think loading the main gun would be just another push-button task, handled entirely by machines. But that assumption is wrong. One of the most important jobs inside a modern tank is still done by hand, not by a robot, not by a machine, but by a human being. Consider this: a modern main battle tank can cost anywhere from $6 to $10 million. Every sensor, every layer of composite armor, every targeting system inside it represents the cutting edge of military engineering. And yet, in the middle of all that technology, here is a job that still comes down to a person physically picking up a shell that can weigh over 40 pounds and manually placing it into the breech by hand. That contradiction is exactly what makes this debate so fascinating. It splits the world's most powerful militaries into two very different camps, each convinced that their approach is the smarter one. Let's start with the machines. An autoloader is exactly what it sounds like. A mechanical system that automatically loads shells into the tank's main gun. Now human hands required. The concept became popular during the Cold War. Soviet engineers had a very specific goal: build tanks that were smaller, cheaper, and faster to produce than anything NATO had. Removing the human loader was the key. Without a loader, you don't need space for a fourth crew member. That means a smaller turret. A smaller turret means a lower silhouette. And a lower silhouette is harder to spot, harder to hit. This philosophy shaped an entire generation of tanks. The T-72, the T-80. Later, the T-90. All of them use autoloaders, typically built around spinning ammunition carousels tucked beneath the turret ring. These systems can fire 6 to 8 rounds per minute. Faster, in some cases, than a human loader working under extreme stress. They never get tired, they never panic, and they never make a mistake under fire. When adrenaline is pumping through a crew's veins, there is also a practical advantage rarely mentioned. Because the autoloader sits low in the hull, engineers can lower the entire turret roof height. This isn't just about survivability. It also reduces the tank's overall weight. That improves fuel efficiency. And it allows for thicker frontal armor without pushing the vehicle over critical weight limits for bridges and transport. On paper, autoloaders sound like the obvious future of tank design. So, why haven't they taken over completely? Here is where the story gets complicated. Autoloaders come with serious trade-offs, and the most infamous one is where they store the ammunition. In many Soviet-designed tanks, the autoloader carousel sits directly beneath the crew, right in the center of the hull. If that ammunition carousel is struck by enemy fire and detonates, the result is catastrophic. Military analysts have a grim nickname for this failure. They call it the jack-in-the-box effect, where the turret gets blown completely off the tank in a single violent explosion. Footage from recent conflicts has shown this happening again and again, turning it into one of the most debated design flaws in modern armored warfare. Analysts have documented dozens of instances: a single penetrating hit, a chain reaction inside the ammunition carousel, the tank destroyed. Almost instantly, the crew given little to no chance of survival. Beyond battlefield failures, there have also been peacetime accidents linked to autoloader malfunctions. Crews have reported incidents where the mechanical arm misaligned during loading drills, the rounds jammed inside the breech. In a training environment, this results in delays and repairs. In actual combat, that same failure could mean the difference between winning an engagement and losing the tank entirely. There is also the issue of mechanical reliability. Autoloaders are complex machines, built from moving parts, gears, sensors, and hydraulics. And complex machines can jam, misfire, or break down at the worst possible moment. When an autoloader fails in the middle of combat, there often isn't a simple backup plan. Some crews can attempt manual loading in an emergency, but it's slow, awkward, and it was never designed to be the primary method. There is another drawback that rarely gets discussed. Switching ammunition types quickly is far more difficult with an autoloader. If a crew suddenly needs to switch from an anti-tank round to a high-explosive round, a human loader can make that change in seconds. An automated carousel? Often, it cannot adapt nearly as fast. So while autoloaders solve one problem, crew size, they introduce several new ones: survivability, reliability, flexibility. This brings us to the other side of the debate. Countries like the United States and the United Kingdom never fully embraced the autoloader. The M1 Abrams still uses a human loader. So does the British Challenger series. At first glance, this looks like outdated thinking, like clinging to a Cold War-era design in a world of smart weapons and AI-driven targeting systems. But defenders of the human loader argue the opposite. They say the loader's job goes far beyond simply lifting shells into place. A well-trained loader can load the main gun in under 3 seconds. New trainees, they're given up to 15 seconds. But loading is only part of the role. The loader also monitors the radio, tracks ammunition types, can instantly identify which round is needed for a given target. The loader acts as an additional set of eyes, scanning the surroundings for threats that the gunner or driver might miss. In the chaos of battle, and critically, the loader becomes a built-in backup. If another crew member is injured, if equipment malfunctions unexpectedly, in high-stress combat situations, having a fourth trained mind inside the tank isn't a weakness, it's a genuine safety net. Training a loader isn't simple either. Candidates typically go through weeks of physical conditioning. Repeatedly lifting and loading shells under time pressure demands real physical endurance. Many armies also train loaders in basic gunner and driver duties. So, if the situation demands it, the loader can step into another role entirely. Keeping the tank operational even after losing a crew member. Here is also a major difference in how ammunition is stored. Western tanks like the Abrams store their ammunition in armored compartments separated from the crew, with blow-out panels built into the roof. If that ammunition does explode, the force is directed upward and outward, away from the crew, rather than down into the crew compartment, like the carousel systems found in older Soviet designs. This is a major reason why Western militaries have been willing to accept a slightly slower loading process in exchange for dramatically improved crew survivability, even in worst-case scenarios where the tank itself is a total loss. It's worth noting that this isn't simply a case of West versus East. France chose automation with its Leclerc tank. South Korea's K2 Black Panther also uses an autoloader. Japan's Type 10 tank follows the same approach. So autoloaders aren't exclusive to Russia or China. They represent a broader design philosophy, one that prioritizes smaller crews and faster production over the flexibility of a human operator. On the other hand, Israel's Merkava tanks still rely on human loaders. Despite Israel's reputation for cutting-edge military technology and battlefield innovation, this tells us something important. The decision isn't really about which technology is more advanced. It's about what each military values most. Some prioritize speed and smaller crews. Others prioritize flexibility, redundancy, and long-term crew survivability. Neither approach is objectively wrong. They're simply built around different assumptions about how future wars will actually be fought. So where does this leave us going forward? The Abrams platform itself is evolving. The upcoming M1E3 Abrams is expected to shift significantly toward greater automation. Reports suggest the U.S. Army is exploring hybrid electric drive systems, advanced composite armor materials, and yes, potentially some form of autoloading mechanism as well. This doesn't necessarily mean the human loader is disappearing overnight, but it does suggest the balance may be gradually shifting as sensors become more reliable, as mechanical systems resist failure better, as armor design improves. To better protect automated ammunition storage, the arguments for keeping a human loader, they may slowly weaken over the coming decades. Some analysts believe the next generation of Western tanks might adopt a hybrid approach, using partial automation to assist the loader rather than fully replace them. This could mean robotic arms that pre-position shells for faster manual loading, combining the speed of automation with the flexibility and redundancy of a human crew member. If this middle path succeeds, it may finally resolve a debate that has divided tank designers for over half a century. Still, for now, one of the most critical roles inside some of the most advanced war machines ever built is filled not by a computer, not by an algorithm, but by a trained soldier, working with nothing more than speed, muscle memory, and split-second judgment. Under enormous pressure. In an age of artificial intelligence and increasingly autonomous weapons systems, T here is something almost old-fashioned about that fact. But it's also a powerful reminder. Even the most cutting-edge technology still has to prove itself against the reliability of a well-trained human being. And in the world of modern armored warfare, that competition is far from over.